Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
So I wanted, before we get started, to let everyone know that I have a new podcast out, and it's called Meditations. If you like the Meditations segment of this current podcast, you'll like the Meditations podcast. It's nothing but 20 minutes of meditative sounds. And now, on with the podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Caesar's Palace for 12 rounds of boxing. In the red corner from Los Angeles, California, wearing the red trunks with the gold trim, weighing in at 125 pounds, the lightweight champion of the world, Danny Little Red Lopez. Well, Bill, our winners get a home theater receiver. That's right. Experience the full potential of high-definition video with this 72-channel digital home theater receiver from Yamaha. But wait, that's not all. They also get a 5.1-channel surround sound system from Mirage. With 5 palm-sized speakers and a compact subwoofer cube, the MX 5.1 brings you huge immersive sound with Mirage's omnipolar technology. All from the Spiegel catalog, Chicago, Illinois, 60609. And they're taking closer order as down the stretch they come. Mr. Hot Stuff has 3 lengths to make up with chocolate candy last. On the rail, take the points behind that gallant son with chocolate candy gaining on the outside. In the lead is Pioneer of the Nile being tackled by chocolate candy. They're neck and neck as they come to the wire. And Pioneer of the Nile holds off chocolate candy and wins the Santa Anita Derby. And now, on your feet, time to greet holder of 14 NBA titles, your home team, your Los Angeles Lakers. Number 3 at 6'8", 5th year out of UCLA, playing forward, Trevor Ariza. Starting at center, number 17 at 7 feet, 4th year out of St. Andrews High School, Andrew Bynum. And at guard, number 24, 6'6", 13th season out of Loyal Marion High School, Kobe Bryant.
I work at the Riviera Hotel. There's 4 comedians on the bill. And we all had similar hair because we were all using the Riviera in-house shampoo.
Good morning. It's Friday, Evil Friday, June the 20th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the headlines, patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, and the marketing of evil. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. And now the headlines for Friday, June the 20th. GOP gubernatorial candidate picks up massive union endorsement. Cannabis use raises risk of heart attack and stroke more than cocaine, other drugs, major review suggests. Saudi crown prince likens Iran to Nazi Germany, urges action on nuclear threat. Democrats confused on what exactly children are for if you can't mutilate or kill them. A Utah family's oil business was revealed as a front for a massive cartel operation, smuggling stolen oil and funding terrorism. Israel destroys 35 plus Iranian missile sites in precision airstrikes. Breaking news, Ninth Circuit sides with President Trump on National Guard troops in L.A. U.S. aid official pleads guilty in sprawling corruption scheme. And those are the headlines for Friday, June the 20th. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the political corner.
Today we execute a search warrant on the individual who was seen earlier this week distributing face shields to suspected rioters down in Los Angeles. We have made it a huge priority to try to identify, locate, and arrest those who are involved in organizing, supporting, funding, or facilitating these riots that they're going on. It appears they're well orchestrated and coordinated and well funded, so we want to understand who these people are and where this organization is coming from. And today was one of those first arrests, the key arrests that we did.
And that was the political corner. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the patriotic shorts, A-10 gun run.
Two A-10 Warthogs are the last hope for these U.S. soldiers. Whilst trapped under enemy fire, they throw smoke to guide the jets in.
Look for the smoke. It's going to be a red smoke. You want to be a red smoke? Okay, I got the red smoke. Roger. Gun run. North and south. West of the smoke. West of the smoke. Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Roger. Keep your fire. West of the smoke. Okay, copy that. I am visual the smoke. Roger, I see you. You're cleared hot. You got me, right? Gotcha. Kill! Kill! I need you. Come on, Kill. Same spot. Look for me. Keep him wet. Still taking fire from the west. All right, dude. Make it low in your strength. I want it closer. I need it on the west hillside. The west bank. Just west. I need it on the west bank. Okay, one's in from the north. I've got the west bank of the river. Two's going to give it to you in the grove. Roger. Give me that gun run. Right along that bag, baby. In hot. Clear hot. Altitude. Kill. Give me that in the grove. In the grove. She's in 15 seconds. Kill. I have you visual. You are cleared hot. Kill in the grove. Over. We're moving east. Give me the fire. South in the grove. South in the grove. Altitude. Pull up. Pull up. West bank gun run. Kill. Okay, understand. West bank. We're right just straight to a couple passes ago. That's A-firm. That's A-firm. So you're cleared hot. Keep it from the north. Cleared hot. Just east of those rounds. West south. Acknowledge. Understand. East of number 2's rounds. Cleared hot. One's in from the north. Confirm you're still moving east. Roger, that's A-firm. Still moving east. Cleared hot. Altitude. Altitude. No contact. We want next. Okay, two. Ridgeline to my southeast. Ridgeline to my southeast. Give me gun runs, over. Two is in on the ridgeline to the southeast. Roger, two. Right over my head. Cleared hot. All right, Massive. Give me a smoke and give me a Willie Pete mark on where you want the next ones. Okay, I'll try. I'll give you smoke. I don't know about Willie Pete. I got 100 rounds. All right.
And that was the patriotic short. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now a little motivation.
Everyone climbs a mountain, and right when they're like, I can't go anymore, that last inch is going to make all the difference. And they give up. It's because, one, they had a bad plan of action. But two, they've lost the motivation. They're not seeing the visual representation of their effort being put out, so therefore they're like, yeah, I'm done.
You are going to come up against some moments in your life. I've been there. You're going to come up with some moments in your life. Somebody told you it was over. Somebody told you that just go home and die. Somebody sent you home. Somebody told you you'll never be a doctor. They sent you home, you failed. They sent you home, law school. They sent you home. Some wife, she told you, that's it. I don't want to be married to you. Some husband, he told you, I don't want to be married to you. And he left. Never give up. I need mental toughness.
It's no reason to cry. It's a reason to build. It's a reason to get stronger. It's a reason to get more intense. It's a reason to get better. You need one more thing, one more check, one more something to put yourself in a position where you get higher. I don't care if it's fair or not. It's what you got to do. You can get through this. Because you're bigger than this. You're better than this. You're tougher than this. And when you get to the other side, you're going to be better. You're going to be bigger. You're going to be bolder. You guys are saying you're doing everything right. You're giving it your all. Come on. Your all is a lot more than you know. And you got more inside of you to give. Stop selling yourself so short.
We've come too far to quit now. When you're in the darkest place, when you feel like all is lost, when you think there's no way to turn it around, remember this. Victory is near.
I don't care if you have to inch your way day by day. And it hurts. And it's hard. And nobody can see what you're really going through. If you don't quit, the pit will become your platform. I'm telling somebody right now, your lowest moment, the place where you were that broken, will be the place of your greatest testimony.
I am not phenomenally skilled, but phenomenally will. I will not give up. I will not surrender. I will not quit. And your problem is you're giving up too easy. We've come too far. We've been through too much. We've seen too much. We've had too many victories. We have seen defeat. We've looked defeat in the face, and we've overcome it. We've come too far to be negative now. We've come too far to start overthinking now.
Once we hit that wall, we don't quit, we don't give up. We push a switch called will, and we start using our willpower. Yes, we tired. Yes, we're hungry. Yes, the mind is saying give up. Yes, it's saying quit. But we cannot quit because we realize we have not reached the goal yet. This is not what I dreamed about. This is not what I said I was going to do. This is not what it looks like. Mentally, you must be there before you physically even start. It's a mindset. That dream and success. I'm going to meet. I'm going to create. All I have to do is sweat for it, work for it, study for it, drive for it, believe in it. Never take no for an answer, and never give up. When the winds of life don't hit your sail, you grab the fucking oars of life. And you start pushing your body, your boat, your vessel into the harbor of a known point that you want to be. Those are not who gets you there. You got to get yourself there, guys. When you leave the crowd, you start to dream and express your best to the world. You will be different, and people don't like it if you're different. Every hero you guys had was called an idiot, crazy, a loser. They will try to tear you down, and they will try to mock you. When you get to that point of frustration, of anger, that is tremendous fuel for you to go out and do the shit that you want to do. Your goal should be to become so successful in whatever it is that you're trying to do that all the people who said that shit to you, those motherfuckers should look at the floor. One person with a belief overrides thousands of people with just intent.
The people that are hungry are willing to do the things today others won't do. In order to have the things tomorrow others won't have. The spirit of resiliency, the spirit of grit, it's in your DNA. It's in your blood. Overcoming is in your blood. Getting through adversity is in your blood. I need effort from you. I need you to match whatever effort the enemy is putting up. Whoever your enemy is, match the doggone effort. This is what you do. You are built for this.
And that was motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the Daily Stoic.
The most valuable asset. But the wise person can lose nothing. Such a person has everything stored up for themselves, leaving nothing to fortune. Their own goods are held firm, bound in virtue, which requires nothing from chance, and therefore can't be either increased or diminished. Seneca, On the Firmness of the Wise, 5.4.
And that's the Daily Stoic. And now, His Excellency, Bishop Robert Barron.
So for a lot of people, maybe listening to me right now, you say, yeah, at one point in my life, I was really excited about religious things. And I was excited about the Lord. But then I didn't cultivate it. And then what does the Lord say here? Some tribulation or persecution comes. Well, yeah, it always happens, doesn't it? Some difficulty, tribulation, someone attacks me, someone makes fun of me. You got to cultivate the seed, everybody. Day in and day out, season in and season out. When it's fun to do so, when it's not fun to do so. Otherwise.
And that was His Excellency, Bishop Robert Barron. Thank you, and now, psychopathy.
Machiavellianism is a personality trait characterized by cunning, manipulation, and a willingness to use deceit for personal gain. It often emerges from a combination of genetics and life experiences. Individuals with Machiavellian tendencies typically exhibit traits like manipulation, lack of empathy, and a desire for power. If someone recognizes these symptoms in themselves, they may seek professional help, such as therapy or counseling, to address these traits and work towards healthier interpersonal relationships and personal growth.
And that was psychopathy. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Varney and Company.
John Lonsky and Cheryl Cassoni. We will see you soon. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. Varney and Company picks it up after the break. Have a great weekend.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm Ashley Webster in for Stuart Varney today. Meantime, overnight, Iran launching a new wave of ballistic missiles into southern Israel, injuring at least 5 people. The IDF says 60 Israeli fighter jets attacked dozens of military targets across Iran. But there are now questions about China's possible involvement. Several Boeing 747s have been spotted on radar leaving China for Iran over the last week. There are concerns that Beijing is helping Iran transport cargo or people possibly out of the country. Today, Iran's foreign minister will meet with his European counterparts in Geneva. The Europeans will likely press Iran to agree to talks with the U.S. and reiterate that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Here at home, President Trump says he will decide within 2 weeks whether the U.S. will get directly involved, but signals there is a substantial chance for negotiations. The markets this morning are all moving broadly higher in the pre-market. The Dow up 143, the S&P up about 0.3%, and the Nasdaq up nearly 0.5%. Taking a look at the 10-year Treasury yield, that too slightly higher, although essentially flat at 4.43%. Meanwhile, let's take a look at what the 2-year yield is doing, also essentially flat at 3.95%. Bitcoin, meanwhile, I think that continues to move higher, up $1,500 at $106,000. Oil, a lot of questions about what's going to happen with oil prices, up ever so slightly to $75.30. Well, there you go. It's essentially flat at $75. And take a look at gold. Always considered a safe haven, but this is the worst month for gold, believe it or not. Down again, 1.5% at $3,359 per troy ounce. All right, on the show today, overnight, President Trump scores a legal win over California Governor Gavin Newsom. An appeals court unanimously rules the president retains control of the California National Guard. We'll get into that. And a new Fox News poll reveals growing concern over President Biden's mental fitness, with nearly 7 in 10 voters saying his cognitive decline was clear even before his debate performance against President Trump. It is Friday, June 20th, the summer solstice, no less. Varney and Company is about to begin.
And that was Varney and Company. And back in a minute. Oh, nonprofit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Back in a minute. Thank you. From the New York Post, Miranda Devine wrote, and it says here opinion, so I'm assuming it's supposed to be an opinion piece. FBI emails revealed to the Post expose Biden DOJ's obsession with piling on Trump charges. Internal FBI emails revealed that rogue agents and prosecutors in the Biden DOJ were looking for ways to pile on new criminal charges against Donald Trump over the January 6th Capitol riot, this time over his involvement with J6 prisoner choir. The 2023 emails obtained by the Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley and revealed exclusively to the Post are an example of the nitpicking malice of anti-Trump lawfare that tainted special counsel Jack Smith's investigation during Joe Biden's presidency. Let's see what else we got. Let's skip down here. According to a Forbes article, Trump recorded the Pledge of Allegiance at Mar-a-Lago, and Kash Patel and Ed Henry were also involved. The profits were routed to an LLC by Henry, so apparently they made some money from this. Allegedly, Trump and Kash Patel made money from this recording. To an LLC by Henry, etc. Cooney also instructed colleagues to look at starting some process on Ed Henry's LLC. His email was forwarded to 8 agents and DOJ staff. Cooney is an individual in the FBI, including notorious anti-Trump FBI Special Agent Walter Gardena, who responded 2 days later to say he was investigating the claims on the Forbes article about Trump and the J6 prisoner choir. Gardena was Agent Zero in a lot of overzealous FBI actions involving Trump and his allies, including the investigation of Trump White House advisor Peter Navarro. It was Gardena's FBI team that arrested Navarro as he was about to board a plane at Reagan National in 2022, putting him in leg irons and threw him in jail instead of simply issuing a summons for him to come to court. Gardena was significantly involved in Operation Crossfire Hurricane. According to Grassley, Gardena was an initial recipient of the Steele dossier. Gardena also electronically wiped the laptop he was assigned while working for Special Counsel Mueller outside of established protocol for record preservation. Whistleblowers have told Grassley that Gardena openly stated his desire to investigate Trump. Grassley believes this email chain is another clear example of how the federal law enforcement apparatus is weaponized. Instead of focus on DOJ and FBI's core law enforcement responsibilities, partisan prosecutors and agents were surfing the web to find any shred of information they could use against Donald Trump. Grassley, known as the patron saint of whistleblowers, is working with Patel and his deputy to ferret out the lawfare correspondence hidden at FBI headquarters. Patel also this week gave Grassley an FBI intelligence report alleging Chinese involvement in forging American driver's licenses. Whistleblowers had told Grassley that the FBI memo has been recalled. Thanks to the oversight work and partnership of Chairman Grassley, the FBI continues to provide unprecedented transparency, Patel just told the news. To that end, we've located documents Chairman Grassley requested. My investigative work won't rest, Grassley told the Senate on Wednesday. Among the charges that Smith, Cooney, and Gardena and pals were trying to drum up against Trump over his conduct were conspiracy to defraud the U.S., obstruction of an official proceeding, and potential violations of the Insurrection Act. Ultimately, they failed. Trump comprehensively won the 2024 election. Smith was forced to drop the January 6th and Mar-a-Lago cases against him, and Trump fired his team, targeted their law firms, and pardoned every January 6th defendant. Now, the problem here is this is all gaslighting because it's listed as an opinion piece, but nowhere in this article does Miss Devine express an opinion. It's an opinion piece masquerading as news, and this is the gaslighting that the news agencies across the board pull every day. Varney and Company is a classic example of that. They don't say Varney with the news or Varney commentary or Varney net analysis. It's just Varney and Company. And then they throw things out there and then hope that you and I are not going to challenge him to tell us, well, is this news, commentary, or is it analysis? Sean Hannity does the same thing. He says he's news, commentary, and analysis, but we don't know what thing coming out of his mouth at what time is which one of those things. And they keep it nice and vague and hazy because they want to gaslight their audience. Everybody, as I've said, uses gaslighting now. It is a common weapon. It is the weapon du jour. It is not just something that is used by people that are highly neurotic or psychotic. Everybody uses it. The news media uses it. People like you and me, we gaslight each other on a regular basis. The thing is to be able to know and expose it. And the first way to know, does the person that's giving you information identify themselves? If they're talking about, let's say Donald Trump, are they pro-Trump or anti-Trump? And if they don't want, and you can ask them, oh, so you're a Trump supporter. And if they refuse to answer, if they say, well, no, I'm just saying, oh, so you're anti-Trump, you hate Trump. No, I'm just saying, they refuse to identify themselves. We know they're acting in bad faith. They're gaslighting. So that's the way to smoke them out. And so the same thing I might do with Miranda Devine if, I had the opportunity to do it. But anyways, be advised, just because it reads opinion doesn't mean it's an opinion. Nowhere in this piece, FBI emails revealed the post, blah, 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 piling on Trump charges, reveals her opinion about this particular subject. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now from a book that's called Good Inside. What's the opposite of understanding? For this argument's sake, it's convincing. Convincing is the attempt to prove a singular reality, to prove that only one thing is true. Convincing is an attempt to be right, and as a result make the other person wrong. It rests on the assumption that there's only one correct viewpoint. And then my question is this supposed to be convincing? Further, convincing has one goal in mind, being right. And here's the unfortunate consequence of being right. The other person feels unseen and unheard, at which point most people become infuriated and combative because it feels as if the other person does not accept your realness or worth. Feeling unseen and unheard makes connection impossible. Understanding two things are true and convincing one thing is true are diametrically opposed ways of approaching other people, so a powerful first step in any interaction is to notice which mode you're in. When you're in one thing is true mode, you're judgmental of and reactive to someone else's experience because it feels like an assault on your own truth. As a result, you will seek to prove your own point of view, which in turn makes the other person defensive because they need to uphold the realness of their experience. In one thing is true mode, exchanges escalate quickly. Each person thinks they're arguing about the content of the conversation when in fact they're trying to defend that they are a real, worthy person with a real, truthful experience. And again, is this convincing? Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, a little bit of law and order.
The zealousness required by the canons. And I'm sure she thinks we should have exhibited a little more of it in prosecuting Joshua Berger.
You can't compare what Joshua Berger did with what Isaac Roberts did.
Of course not. Suppose this crazy motion actually works. The judge buys Green's argument.
Would you drag an innocent man out of a car and bash his brains in?
You know, I don't know how I'd react if I'd been screwed by the system my whole life.
There we go. So this is gaslighting, and the way she did it, she's the gaslighter in this case, two ADAs, and they're talking about another attorney. And so the way she does it is she becomes neutral or transparent. And the reason she's doing that is this way she gets to argue both sides of the argument. He made a mistake by not pinning her down, by saying, do you agree with Miss Green and Miss Green's motions? Because that's the way it sounds like, right? At first it sounds like she's agreeing with this other attorney. But he needs to pin her down. He needs to get her to identify herself and say, well, yes, I do, or no, I don't. And then you can't be whipsawed. Otherwise, she can now, if you don't bother to pin her down, she can play both sides of the fence. She can say, as she did here, well, maybe, or this is what I understand from her, or I sympathize. So it's like the people that will say, I don't agree with it, but I understand it. This way they get to have their cake and eat it too. But anyway, she gets to play. You hear her there playing both sides of the argument. And so she says, well, I don't know what I do if, but again, and he's going to be now confused because he simply didn't pin her down. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now from the American Thinker, an article by Charlton Allen, Breaking Update, Ninth Circuit rebuffs Newsom's courtroom coup. The progressive legal class has long treated district court rulings as cudgels, wielded with fanfare, amplified by media allies, and then quietly discarded when overturned. But this time, the cudgel broke in their hands. Yesterday evening, a unanimous Ninth Circuit panel, including a Biden appointee, rebuked Judge Charles Breyer and stayed his overreaching attempt to strip President Trump of command over the California National Guard. Breyer's injunction, celebrated by Governor Gavin Newsom and his legal entourage, ordered Trump to relinquish control of the Guard. The theory? That the president violated the 10th Amendment and failed to transmit a federalization order through the governor properly. In reality, the orders were delivered exactly as required, through California's adjutant general, acting in the name of the governor as state law mandates. No amount of robe-clad hand-wringing or gubernatorial swooning into a constitutional safe space, heretofore unknown in American jurisprudence, changes that. Breyer's ruling was not a sound judgment. It had a mawkish tone, more a performative rebuke than a legal rationale, one that slid past controlling authority and historical precedent, ignoring constitutional command in favor of political poppycock, no doubt served up by Newsom's Ferragamo-fitted legal phalanx. Because how dare Heartland America elect Trump? How dare people install a president who meant what he said and said what he meant? To the remnants of the prior administration, to the anointed mandarins of the Beltway Ancien regime and their left coast Babylonian bulwark and Bonnie Prince Gavin, he of the perfectly coiffed hair and lamb's wool blazer, fitting attire for a sheep in sheep's clothing, that isn't leadership. That's lèse-majesté. The president disrupted succession for the progressive privileged class, which now behaves as the reactionary force, yearning for a return to the pre-Trump status quo, where centralized control grew unchecked under their oligarchy. Trump and those who elected him are storming the Versailles, sometimes a new one every day, every week, or every fortnight, with ballots and deportation orders, not bayonets. Newsom's lawsuit, propped up by Breyer's now gutted ruling, was a classic case of courtroom nullification, a modern revival of Calhounist doctrine dressed up in progressive legalese, seeking to block a lawful and constitutional federal action by President Cast, very much in the mold of Andrew Jackson. Trump didn't stage a coup. He followed the law, the Constitution, and centuries of precedent. From Washington's march on the Whiskey Rebellion to Eisenhower's intervention in Little Rock to Bush's federalization in Los Angeles. The Ninth Circuit affirmed what history already knew. When the president defends national sovereignty, enforces federal law, and protects officers of the United States, no state governor, not even one with a hair and makeup team, can stand in his way. Simply put, the legalistic left's attempted coup par ordonnance de tribunal, a coup by court order, failed miserably. Their coup, that effort to upend centuries of constitutional order and seize authority from a duly elected president, was stopped in its tracks. This time, for now. Still, the legacy press can't help itself. Even as the Ninth Circuit guts Breyer's logic, many media outlets persist in rehashing his findings as though the appellate decision never happened. It's a tired sleight of hand. Trumpet activist rulings against Trump then go mute, dissemble, or regurgitate the lower court's reasoning as a false equivalency once the higher courts overturn them. The narrative must be preserved, never truly defeated, no matter the scoreboard. Yet the judiciary cannot continue to indulge this performance art disguised as constitutional litigation. The progressive legal cartel would be wise not to appeal to the Supreme Court, because if they do, they may well provoke a precedent that buries this charade once and for all. That's how Skermeti happened, after all. Newsom has already signaled that he will continue to fight Trump. Of course he has. The Supreme Court is long overdue to body-check the entire apparatus of the unprecedented, systematic throttling of constitutional norms by federal district courts through actions designed not merely to hamstring, but to hogtie the sitting president. The question now is, will the party of nine rise to the occasion? In sum, this coordinated attempt to obstruct federal law under the guise of states' rights is not federalism. It's not constitutionalism. It's not some principled or novel invocation of the 10th Amendment. It bears repeating. It is something far more dangerous. It is sedition. It is nullification. It is modern-day resurrection of Calhounism, this time in designer sneakers. And it must be quashed, forthrightly, finally, and forthwith. And that was an article from Charlton Allen. Breaking update, Ninth Circuit rebuffs Newsom's courtroom coup. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of Georgia.
Davvero per aver risposto al nostro invito, grazie per aver contribuito al successo di questa iniziativa promossa dall'Italia e dall'Unione Europea. Come ho avuto modo stamattina di dire in apertura dei lavori, l'evento di oggi racchiude in sé lo spirito del Piano Mattei per l'Africa e rappresentando due principi cardine nella strategia italiana. Uno di quei principi è ovviamente la condivisione. Noi abbiamo sempre concepito questa strategia come la costruzione di un nuovo paradigma nelle relazioni con le nazioni africane, e cioè una cooperazione tra pari basata su una condivisione delle priorità. Il secondo punto è l'internazionalizzazione. Alla stampa italiana in apertura di quest'anno avevo detto che sarebbe stato l'obiettivo di quest'anno relativamente al piano Mattei. Noi siamo sempre stati consapevoli del fatto che chiaramente fosse fondamentale andare oltre il semplice rapporto tra Italia e continente africano e che la sfida sarebbe stata quella di creare sempre maggiori sinergie, sempre maggiori collaborazioni con partner internazionali, ed è evidente come il primo partner naturale di questa strategia non potesse che essere l'Unione Europea con il suo Global Gateway.
And that was a little bit of Georgia. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now this is a little clip from a press conference with Carolyn Levitt.
And then really quick on Jasmine Crockett, she said, I believe, that Trump supporters are mentally ill before calling for bipartisan support against the president. Can you respond to that, especially considering...
So, no, that's she shouldn't respond to it. She does go ahead and respond to it and saying, yeah, I hope that Jasmine is a rising star in the Democrat Party. No, you don't have to answer questions. And you don't have to answer stupid questions. This isn't a question about news. This is gossip. And it has no place in a news conference, a press conference, no place. So Carolyn Levin should have told her, no, I'm not going to answer it. It's stupid. It's gossip. And shame on you. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Europe.
Eugénie Bastier va nous parler ce matin, bonjour Eugénie, d'une étude qui vient de paraître émanant de la prestigieuse université américaine, le MIT, à propos de ChatGPT. Je ne sais pas si vous l'utilisez, Pascal, mais les résultats peut-être vous intéresser et peut-être vous inquiéter, Eugénie.
Oui, il s'agit de la première étude de scanner cérébral des utilisateurs de ChatGPT et les résultats sont tout simplement terrifiants, puisque l'IA ne nous rend pas plus intelligents et plus productifs, mais plus idiots et cognitivement affaiblis. Alors l'étude a réparti 54 participants en 3 groupes. On leur a demandé de rédiger plusieurs dissertations, le premier groupe en utilisant ChatGPT, le deuxième en utilisant Google et l'autre sans aucun outil. Alors les chercheurs ont enregistré l'activité cérébrale des participants. Résultat, les utilisateurs de ChatGPT ont montré la plus faible activité cérébrale et ont constamment sous-performé au niveau neuronal, linguistique et comportemental. Le troisième groupe, celui qui utilisait Google, présentait une activité cérébrale importante et exprimait un niveau de satisfaction élevé.
Mais c'est quoi le problème dans l'utilisation de ChatGPT? En quoi ça amoindrit notre cerveau?
Il y a d'abord la question de la mémoire, bien sûr, puisque 80% des utilisateurs n'arrivaient pas à citer les extraits de ce qu'ils avaient écrit quelques minutes plus tôt grâce au robot, car c'était ChatGPT qui avait réfléchi à leur place. La perte de motivation ensuite. Au fil des mois, les participants sont devenus de plus en plus passifs, finissant souvent par se contenter de copier-coller les réponses de ChatGPT. La faiblesse des contenus ensuite. Quand on a demandé aux utilisateurs qui utilisaient ChatGPT de s'en passer, ils ont écrit des dissertations de plus mauvaise qualité que ceux qui n'avaient jamais utilisé l'outil.
Eugénie Bastier va nous parler.
And that was Europe 1. Back in a minute. Thank you, and now the marketing of evil.
Chapter 7. Sabotaging Our Schools. How Radicals Have Hijacked America's Education System. If an unfriendly foreign power had attempted to impose on America the mediocre educational performance that exists today, we might well have viewed it as an act of war. Does that sound like the rantings of a right-wing, anti-public school fanatic? Actually, it's the conclusion of the National Commission on Excellence in Education, convened by the Reagan administration. After 18 months of thoroughly examining America's schools, the Commission presented its dismal conclusions in its April 1983 report titled A Nation at Risk, which focused on America's loss of competitive edge in the post-Sputnik era. That report has been joined by scores of books before and since, sounding the alarm over the corruption, some say intentional subversion, of America's government schools. Some of the analyses sound downright sinister. Change agents, we are told, are attempting to reprogram Johnny into a drone, carefully groomed for service in a future utopian socialistic state. Others speak of the deliberate dumbing down of educational standards and practices. Are these characterizations accurate, exaggerated, or just paranoid fantasies? The educational Paul Revere's warn of bizarre curricula, like death education, during which the class takes a field trip to a mortuary and children are required to discuss how they might commit suicide. And there's values clarification, forcing students to decide who should live and who should die in controversial group mental exercises. No matter how far out of the mainstream, it somehow seems to qualify as the basis of public school curriculum, we're told, from New Age rituals to Islamic jihad. That's right. Some California middle schools teach a major unit on Islam as a required part of their curriculum, compelling students to dress up as Muslims, memorize portions of the Quran, and participate in jihad games. And then there's sex. We've heard for years about pornographic co-ed sex education classes in public schools, about school counselors eagerly dispensing birth control to vulnerable teens, and even referring them out for abortions during school hours. No need for mom or dad to know. Today, the nation's middle schools are the focus of major national news stories decrying an epidemic of sexual activity on the part of 12, 13, and 14-year-olds. And of course, homosexual proselytizing has become so rampant in government schools that major cultural icons like James Dobson and talk radio's Dr. Laura Schlesinger have publicly urged parents to remove their children from public schools altogether. We hear a lot about the American Civil Liberties Union suing government schools over alleged violations of the separation of church and state. As a result, public schools are now so intimidated they go to absurd lengths to censor the slightest reference to God. A recent example was a California school that prohibited a teacher from giving his history students excerpts from the Declaration of Independence, the diaries of George Washington and John Adams, the writings of William Penn, and various state constitutions because of the document's references to God. I'm not kidding. And since the 1999 Columbine school massacre, another bizarre phenomenon revealing widespread abandonment of common sense on the part of school administrators is repeating itself from coast to coast. 4 kindergartners in Sayreville, New Jersey, were suspended from school for 3 days for playing cops and robbers on the playground during recess. The boys were found guilty of using their fingers as guns and shouting words like bang while running around the schoolyard. An 8th grader at Blue Ridge Middle School in Loudoun County, Virginia, received a note in class from a friend who said she was contemplating suicide and had brought a knife to school in her binder. Aware that the girl had been hospitalized for psychiatric problems, the boy took the knife away from her and locked it in his locker. As thanks for the boy's heroism, the school board decided he should be suspended for 4 months. 3 boys were suspended from Bemis Elementary School in Spokane, Washington, for bringing to school miniature toy guns from G.I. Joe action figures. The toys were about 1 to 3 inches, but the school said it stands by its zero-tolerance policy on weapons. In New Jersey, a 9-year-old student was suspended from school for a day and ordered to undergo a psychological evaluation after mentioning to a friend his intent to shoot a classmate with a wad of paper. The 4th grader had planned to launch spitballs at the girl using a rubber band. Local police went to the boy's home after midnight and questioned him about the shooting incident. In Florida, a female high school sophomore with a good academic record and no disciplinary problems was suspended for possession of a nail clipper. She had lent the clipper to a friend who used a 2-inch file attachment to clean underneath her nails, but a school officer deemed the attachment to be a knife blade. In a grotesque overreaction to the rash of school shootings and prevalence of illegal drugs on campus, administrators' solutions have turned many schools into Alice in Wonderland environments where nothing makes sense and the Queen of Hearts shouts, "Off with their heads," for the slightest perceived offense. The truth is, the Reagan-era Commission was on the mark, perhaps more than it even realized at the time, when it characterized the dismal state of government schools as equivalent in seriousness to an act of war. Indeed, it was an act of war. Or maybe revolution is a better word. Let us travel back to the war rooms of educational reform and behold the astounding transformation of American education, and thereby of the nation's children and ultimately American society, which has been dreamed up, planned, and executed by people with values and agendas profoundly at odds with those of most Americans. Although you'd never guess it from the way today's government learning centers have been surgically scrubbed clean of any vestige of Christian influence, America's earliest schools were originally established to ensure biblical literacy. The Puritan founders of New England saw their settlement as a once-in-a-lifetime chance to create a biblically based society free of the corrupting influences of the old world. To make this dream a reality, the Puritans recognized the need to pass the torch of biblical knowledge on to the next generation. Thus, in the 1630s, Calvinists, that's what most of the Puritans were, founded Harvard College as a seminary for educating a learned clergy and organized grammar schools to prepare young scholars for Harvard. However, this Calvinist utopian experiment didn't last long. After years of rivalry, In 1805, the Unitarians took control of the college and kicked out the Orthodox Calvinists. So, what was this controversy all about? Essentially, the Unitarians rejected the strict Calvinist view that man is innately depraved or born in sin. Rather, the Unitarians were convinced that man not only was born good, but was perfectible. Therefore, the Unitarians practiced their religion mostly in the area of social progress and good works. Evil, they contended, entered our lives not because of man's fallen and sinful nature, as the Calvinists believed, but rather because of poverty and lack of education. By eradicating ignorance through universal education, the Unitarians believed they could end poverty and social injustice. Moreover, they were confident that the ideal educational system should be secular and directed by government. Thus, led by Horace Mann, the Unitarians paved the way for the establishment of America's public school system. Although the early government schools still maintained high academic standards, as well as Judeo-Christian morality, all of that started to change during the post-Civil War era, when education came under the sway of a fantastic revolution then brewing. John Taylor Gatto, one of America's most celebrated public school teachers, voted both New York City and New York State Teacher of the Year, describes what happened to America's schools in the late 19th century. In The Underground History of American Education, Gatto tells how progressive educational leaders hijacked America's school system and recreated it according to strange new philosophies, all with the apparent best of intentions, believing they were doing the great work of advancing civilization. Transporting readers back to the smoke-filled rooms of the late 19th century, Gatto writes, "Somehow, out of the industrial confusion which followed the Civil War, powerful men and dreamers became certain what kind of social order America needed. This realization didn't arise as a product of public debate, as it should have in a democracy, but as a distillation of private discussion. Their ideas contradicted the original American charter, but that didn't disturb them. They had a stupendous goal in mind, the rationalization of everything, the end of unpredictable history and its transformation into something orderly. The first goal, to be reached in stages, was an orderly, scientifically managed society, one in which the best people would make the decisions, unhampered by democratic tradition. After that, human breeding, the evolutionary destiny of the species, would be in reach. Universal, institutionalized, formal, forced schooling was the prescription." If your head is already spinning, and you're tempted to relegate this to the conspiracy bin, don't. Truth is sometimes stranger than fiction. Gatto goes on to name names. In the first decades of the 20th century, he writes, a small group of soon-to-be famous academics, symbolically led by John Dewey and Edward Thorndike of Columbia Teachers College, Elwood P. Cubberley of Stanford, G. Stanley Hall, and an ambitious handful of others, energized and financed by major corporate and financial allies like Morgan, Astor, Whitney, Carnegie, and Rockefeller, decided to bend government schooling to the service of business and the political state, as it had been done a century before in Prussia. And what were the motives of this group? After the Civil War, continues Gatto, utopian speculative analysis regarding isolation of children and custodial compounds where they could be subjected to deliberate molding routines began to be discussed seriously by the Northeastern policy elites of business, government, and university life. These discussions were inspired by a growing realization that the productive potential of machinery driven by coal was limitless. Railroad development made possible by coal, startling new inventions like the telegraph, seemed suddenly to make village life and local dreams irrelevant. A new governing mind was emerging in harmony with the new reality. The principal motivation for this revolution in family and community life seems on the surface to be greed, but appearance concealed philosophical visions approaching religious exaltation in intensity. That effective early indoctrination of all children would lead to an orderly scientific society, one controlled by the best people, now freed from the obsolete straitjacket of democratic traditions and historic American libertarian attitudes. Forced schooling was the medicine to bring the whole continental population into conformity with these plans, so it might be regarded as a human resource, managed as a workforce. No more Ben Franklin's or Tom Edison's could be allowed. They set a bad example. Wait a minute, you must be thinking by now. Where do God, the Bible, the Ten Commandments, and good old American independence fit into this scheme? They don't. A core change in American values, one that didn't involve God or absolute values, was being birthed in secret. That's right, in secret. For while most of us are at least somewhat familiar with America's history as it encompasses politics and elections, medical and scientific advances, fashions and cultural trends, wars and revolutions, we are only dimly aware of the most important modern revolution of all. That is, the overthrow, by a self-anointed leader class, of Western Judeo-Christian values and beliefs in favor of a de facto atheistic scientific worldview. Scientific? Let's take a closer look at what that code word actually meant to these revolutionaries. Is there really a God? Does man have an immortal soul? Is our primary responsibility in this life to be obedient and faithful to God and to his laws of life? Or are we just animals, highly evolved mammals without higher purpose, except whatever purpose we decide upon, whose ultimate goal is to live comfortably and pleasurably and to interact in maximum harmony with the rest of society? This battle of worldviews, of course, rages endlessly just below the surface of many of today's most contentious issues. Although many have been powerfully attracted to the humanistic worldview throughout history, it wasn't until the 19th century that a scientific justification emerged for rejecting the spiritual nature of man, literally for denying God. Of course, Charles Darwin's evolutionary theory, since it offered a way to explain creation without the need for a creator, provided the philosophical underpinning for an atheistic worldview. But it was people like German psychologist Wilhelm Wundt, the founder of experimental psychology, who created the scientific basis not only for denying God, but for transforming society. Wundt and his followers believed man was just an animal that could be analyzed, understood, and reprogrammed for the betterment of society. They contended this could be done first by careful observation and measurement of psychological and physical reactions, sensations, perception, attention, feelings, associations, and so on, and then by inducing appropriate stimulation to re-educate humans in the desired way. So influential was Wundt, to this day he is referred to as the father of experimental psychology, that the redefinition of education was inevitable. As Wundt observed, learning is the result of modifiability in the paths of neural conduction. The situation-response formula is adequate to cover learning of any sort, and the really influential factors in learning are readiness of the neurons, sequence in time, belongingness, and satisfying consequences. What this technical jargon means is that man is an animal and can be trained like one. Wundt's work provided scientific cover for the revolutionary reformist views of the intellectuals of his day, basing their new approach to governance on science, evolution, and psychology. Their number one goal was to transform America through its education system, which they did by taking control of teachers' colleges, textbook publishers, and other institutions. One of the first casualties was literacy. I'll skip the gory details of how phonics, the simple, logical, and proven method of teaching reading used successfully for centuries, was abandoned in favor of a new system dreamed up by progressive reformers. Variously called the look-say or whole word method, it has been responsible for an epidemic of poor readers in our lifetime and prompted Rudolf Flesch's 1955 national bestseller, Why Johnny Can't Read. Here's what Flesch said in one of the most talked about books of that decade. The teaching of reading all over the United States, in all the schools, in all the textbooks, is totally wrong and flies in the face of all logic and common sense. As educational historian Samuel Blumenfeld wrote, Flesch explained to the American people, most of whom were hearing this for the first time, that the professors of education had changed the way reading was taught in American schools. They got rid of the traditional alphabetic phonics method and replaced it with a look-say, whole word method that taught children to read English as if it were Chinese, that is, composed of characters instead of phonetically structured words. He explained that when you impose an ideographic teaching method on an alphabetic writing system, you cause reading problems. He also explained that it would be very difficult to get phonics back in the schools. It's a foolproof system, all right, wrote Flesch, Every grade school teacher in the country has to go to a teacher's college or school of education. Every teacher's college gives at least one course on how to teach reading. Every course on how to teach reading is based on a textbook. Every one of those textbooks is written by one of the high priests of the word method. In the old days, it was impossible to keep a good teacher from following her own common sense and practical knowledge. Today, the phonetic system of teaching reading is kept out of our schools as effectively as if we had a dictatorship with an all-powerful Ministry of Education. Question: what makes experts throw out something logical, effective, and proven, and substitute something else that is confusing, defies common sense, and doesn't work? The truth is, the progressive education elite forfeited their common sense way back when they were first seduced into the secular worldview that said man is an animal that needs to be controlled and directed by others, namely them. If there is no awareness of God, truth becomes relative, socialism becomes attractive, immorality becomes acceptable, and philosophies become bizarre. Human relationships are no longer based on mutual honor for another child of God, but rather on exploitation and domination, either obvious or subtle. Everything changes. Reading methodology, therefore, is only one of a great many areas of education that were transformed by deluded educational reformers from something that worked to something that didn't work. Today, the theory of evolution is taught as fact, while mere mention in the classroom of real-world scientific disputes over the theory is often censored. Differing moral codes are presented as having equal validity according to situational ethics and multicultural studies. Sex education teaches that premarital sex is okay as long as you don't get a sexually transmitted disease or become pregnant. Widely established homosexual programs teach kids that the gay lifestyle is normal and that thinking otherwise is bigotry and hatred. Meanwhile, with every passing school year, the traditional American values and sensibilities that previous generations were raised on become a fainter memory. Please understand, the people responsible for this disaster, both then and now, are not deliberately trying to hurt children. They are people who fervently believe, with a religious zeal, in a radically different worldview than the one in which most Americans believe. Indeed, radically different from the one on which this nation was founded. If the government's education system is dangerous to our children's freedom and happiness, how then are we to educate them? There are many private schools and other alternatives to government schools, some with impressive and honorable track records. But there is one educational solution I personally believe to be the best, since it has the unique potential not only of providing children the education they need, but also of transforming entire families. Here's a clue from the Bible, from the book of Deuteronomy. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words, which I command thee this day, shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. I'm talking about homeschooling, which is the avenue my wife and I have chosen for our children. The simple truth is, we love our kids more than any teacher could possibly be expected to love them. That's not to our credit, it's just a fact of life. They're our children, whom God has given to us to teach diligently, as it says in Deuteronomy. While not all homeschoolers are religious, evangelical Christians are unquestionably the driving force behind the rapidly growing homeschool movement in America today. Virtually all of the curricula and moral support groups, the networking organizations, the legal battles, the publications, and curriculum fairs are the passionate work of Christians who fiercely believe a de facto atheistic government school system is no place for their children. In fact, the motivation and intensity of many committed Christian homeschoolers is strikingly reminiscent of the Pilgrims. Everyone knows the Pilgrims left England for Holland because of religious persecution. But why did they leave Holland and make the incredibly dangerous trip across the Atlantic to America? William Bradford, one of the Pilgrims who established the Plymouth colony and later served as its governor for more than 30 years, explained what motivated them to leave Holland, despite the freedom from religious persecution they had found there. Many of the children, wrote Bradford of the English transplants, influenced by the great licentiousness of the young people of the country, and the many temptations of the cities were led by evil example into dangerous corners, getting the reins off their neck and leaving their parents. The Pilgrims saw that their children were in danger of being corrupted, and for this reason they left for uncharted territory, America, where they could have the chance to create a new civilization in which their posterity could flourish, uncorrupted by a decadent and perverse culture. They came to America at great cost and sacrifice for the same reasons many Christians, Jews, and other people of conscience today homeschool their children, to protect them from corruption and to give them a powerful grounding in proven principles of life. One of the blessings of parenthood is that the good Lord mercifully seems to grant us a second chance to relive our childhood in some ways, to re-experience traumas, to forgive, to gain experiences and knowledge we missed, to heal the wounds of our youth, to become whole. Homeschooling offers an exquisite opportunity for this healing. My wife Jean, while growing up in South Africa, was sent to a Catholic boarding school at the tender age of 5, where she grew up for the next 5 years in the hands of what she recalls were overly strict and impatient nuns. Her memories are mostly of outrages and injustices, like being forced to stand in a spider-infested corner if she didn't finish her meal or committed some other imagined offense. As she grew up, those convent years receded from her memory, but they had, of course, left their mark on her soul. Years ago, while discussing whether to send our kids to private school or to homeschool them, public school was never on the table. Jean looked at me and said with memorable conviction, "I am these children's mother. Who has a better right to teach them than I?" The truth of that simple logic penetrated my mind and pierced my heart. Today, many years later, I can say that homeschooling has been quite an amazing adventure. But it's not just about better curriculum and protecting your kids from school shooters, gender bending, and jihad studies. It's a way of life for the entire family. I've watched as every family member has grown in character, as Jean and I have both filled in gaps in our own educations by teaching and learning history, geography, literature, science, math, and much more. Jean has even forgiven the nuns for their thoughtless and cruel discipline. Most important, the homeschooling experience is sewing our family together as a unit. For the family that learns to learn together, work together, and play together is the family where siblings become best friends for life. In short, their family becomes a rock, a powerful subculture to which they can always return for guidance and rest. As for me, my ultimate desire is to help bring my family to God. With the Holy Spirit as my compass, and guided by the Scriptures, the blueprint for our character shown with exquisite clarity in the life and words of Jesus Christ, I hope, like every conscience-driven dad hopes, to lead my wife and children safely to that distant shore. After all, we're all pilgrims.
So that's the marketing of evil, how radicals, elitists, and pseudo-experts sell us corruption disguised as freedom by David Capellian. And the problem here with this is that he doesn't say how. He doesn't say how we got here to where we are today. He does a big history, but he doesn't explain that the reason that we have problem with education is that education in our country has been undermined. Our entire educational system has been undermined from nursery school all the way through college. And it started with history. The lefties figured it out. They broke the code. They knew that if they could successfully undercut history, they could then in one fell swoop undercut every single subject in the curriculum. Okay? And that's what they did. They did it by claiming that history is nothing but political propaganda. And the slogan was, "The winners write the history books." And there was nobody like William F. Buckley, who was the guy that should have stood up and defended history and gotten other people to defend history and defend it until death. But he didn't realize, he didn't see what was coming, that if they succeeded in undermining history, they would undermine every other subject under the sun and screw up our educational system, and thereby screwing up our country and our culture. Right now, culturally, we can say that we're the Soviet Union. We are the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, culturally speaking. Not yet political, but culturally, we're there because of that one move, because they were able to undermine history. And when they undermine history, they not only undermine, say, math and all these other subjects, but religion. Because think about it. What is religion fundamentally about, if not history? Judaism, Christianity, Islam, all about history. And if you can convince everybody that history is politics, then what it does is it opens everything up now to interpretation. It becomes a freedom issue. I can come in and say that Christianity is not about what the church says it's about, but it's about something else. And I can reasonably expect other people will listen to me and take me seriously because they already believe that history is politics. So, again, that was The Marketing of Evil. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that greed is not conservative.